ahead and get started. Thank you for coming. Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. I am Kevin Alcuni, a librarian here in the Exploration and Creativity Department with the Los Angeles Public Library.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Diana Leva-Posner. I am the interim division director for the Engagement and Learning Division, which the Exploration and Creativity Department is one of those amazing departments in that division. Okay. Well, we're here to welcome you to today's program. LA Made and El Cine present Bread and Roses and the Right to be Seen. Woohoo! Oh yeah, USC guys are here.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Before we begin, we'd like to take a moment to thank our behind-the-scenes staff for helping bring the LA Made programs to you. LA Made focuses on the diverse landscape of Los Angeles, highlighting the immense artistic and performance talent that is developed in the course of the city's eclectic history. If you'd like to see more of our amazing programs, please visit our online calendar at lapl.org/events. And for our LA Made programs, visit lapl.org/LAMade. We'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, honor their elders past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information on which territory you may reside on, check out native-land.ca.
So just a couple of the housekeeping tips. Please silence your electronic devices, so your cell phones, and so that does not distract our amazing speakers this afternoon. Also, please take a moment to note the location of exits at the back. Kevin will point to that, to the back and the side of the auditorium, just in case there is an emergency. If you are parked in the garage underneath the library today, you can get your parking ticket validated at the information desk in the library lobby, and parking will only be $1 as long as you are parked between 1 p.m. and leave before 5 p.m. All you have to do is show your library card and you'll be validated at the information desk. And you can get a library card, it's free if you do not have one. Please do no eating or drinking in the auditorium unless it's bottled water. Stay hydrated. And the bathrooms are down the hall and to your right.
All right, now for today's amazing program, LA Made in collaboration with El Cine presents a screening of Bread and Roses directed by Ken Loach in 2000. It's a powerful portrait of labor, dignity, and collective resistance. Set in Los Angeles, the film follows immigrant janitorial workers organizing for fair wages and basic rights, foregrounding the intersection of work, migration, and identity within the city's social fabric. This screening invites the viewer to reflect on how cinema can give visibility to lived struggles while remaining intimate and human. Loach's approach, rooted in realism and collaboration, raises questions about authorship, representation, and the ethics of telling working class and immigrant stories on screen. Following the screening, filmmakers Gabriela Ortega, Alexis Garcia, and Walter Thompson Hernandez will join a conversation on identity in filmmaking, considering how labor, community, and political urgency continue to inform contemporary cinematic practice. And now here to kick off our program is Mariana da Silva from El Cine. Yay!
Hello, welcome. Oh, are there subtitles? Hi, everybody. My name is Mariana da Silva, and I'm the founder of El Cine, a 501c3 based here in Los Angeles. We create spaces for Latin stories throughout LA, and we're just so glad that you're here today. So thank you to LA Made for creating this space for us. I've been thinking about hope and faith, and I've realized that faith is the manifestation of things unseen. But hope, it needs vision, and we need both right now. That's why it's important to come together. That's why films like Bread and Roses matter. They don't just tell us what's possible, but they show us. They give us vision, and they remind us that this has been done before, that people have organized, that people have resisted, they have dreamed, and they have survived. My hope is that everyone leaves today with a little bit more hope than they walked in with, and maybe a clearer vision of what's possible. So, gracias por estar aquí, and nos vemos en el cine. Enjoy the film. Thank you so much for being here and for your patience with our technical difficulties. We're so grateful. I'm super lucky to be in conversation with these folks who I really admire. And I just wanted to go around and have you guys introduce yourselves because I would do a terrible job of that.
My name is Walter. I am from Los Angeles, and I'm really happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Alexis Garcia, and I'm from New York City. I'm Afro-Puerto Rican, but I've been in LA now 15 years, so this is home to me. And it's so interesting, we just watched that movie without English subtitles. I thought that was deeply political.
Hi, I'm Gabriela Ortega. I am from the Dominican Republic and also very happy to be here.
Hey, thank you for being here, you guys. I wanted to kick off the conversation in talking about identity and when you guys realized that that was something that could be expressed through your personal voice and learn to lean in, because I think all of you have such a unique voice that you have learned to cultivate or you have cultivated in your work. When did you realize that that was something that you could explore through film?
I didn't necessarily think of film as the first medium of expression. I always thought about storytelling as a way to sort of keep things alive. I grew up in the Dominican Republic. I've been in LA for 13 years. And I think that looks different in every chapter of my life. I think when I was younger, I was just more intuitive wanting to tell stories. So I was like, round up my family and tell jokes. And then my dad gifted me a camcorder. And I would do the Sunday news at my grandmother's house in Santo Domingo. And, you know, the Sunday news was quite political because it was about who didn't take out the trash. But it was a way of documenting life through the eyes of us as children. And I had a bunch of cousins, so that's what we would do with the adults, talked about politics. In my house, politics has always been a topic. But what I found very moving, because I've kind of returned to this story as I'm, you know, in my adult life as an artist now, I remember that we only had one tape. So every Sunday we would tape over it. And there was something about memory and the fact that we can't go back and watch. We just have to keep it within us. That it's something I hold dearly now. And sometimes when it comes to artists and politics, and it's a lot about what's going on right now, and it's almost like you have to be there. If you're not there, you're missing it. You have to sort of be part of this moment. So I don't know, it's just sentiments that I think I carry in the questions I'm asking myself right now.
It's beautiful. I love that story. It took me, since I grew up in the US, I was like always watching mainstream television, being a part of American culture, going to school with, you know, wanting to fit in and watching MTV and HBO and all that stuff. And so I realized when I was like making my first films that I was like trying to make stories through like a colonial lens, like that was for the white gaze, and it took me a while to decolonize my own storytelling. And when I finally did, it was because I started working in digital. I worked at Univision. They had a platform called Flama where we were specifically making content for the American Latino, and we were encouraged to get into our culture and really tell stories from like the perspective of where we, you know, of our shared, you know, cultural language and that experience. And then later I worked at BuzzFeed for Beto Like doing very similar content, and the content that we were creating was resonating with, we found an audience much larger that hadn't been seeing themselves before. And that's when I realized that, oh my God, like my culture is so much more interesting than anything I was trying to see previously. And so that process of just kind of decolonizing my worldview and tapping into the things that are like, you know, culturally we have to talk, right? Like that is being able to see our culture
that maybe we were a part of. And I think now it's like this, everything is political, but to both be a participant of something and an active observer, for me, feels like the most political thing we kind of could do.
That's great. Yeah, I agree. This is amazing. One of the things I once was told when I met Dolores Huerta was that she said film is one of the best ways to organize because you get everybody in a room and they turn everything off and then they just watch the information you're receiving. And I think films like this are interesting because they are at one point in time, and like you said, from the view of an observer more than anything. But I also think they're important because I feel that they show us that preservation, cultural preservation. I feel like film is such an aspect of cultural preservation. Can you talk, and you guys, any of you talk about more so how you see art in general right now, and how you feel you can have conversations that appeal to more than those that only agree with you, maybe? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I'm actively searching that right now in terms of not just speaking to an echo chamber of people that would agree with me. The last project I did, I filmed in Mexico, in El DF, and the financing was through a grant that was from the US, but I made a point that I didn't want to work with anybody from the US because I was going to Mexico for the first time to shoot something. And I've been going to Mexico, partially lived there a few, months here and there and have strong connections there, but I never worked there and I've never shot there. And my point of view as a director in that movie was about a foreigner. It was a Dominican woman coming into Mexico. So I was like, okay, I understand this point of view. So when I approach work, I at least have to know my point of view and be completely honest on where I'm coming from. I'm sure Ken Loach had to find a way in. That was Adrian Brody, for sure. So for me, I'm like, I'm the lead. I'm the Dominican woman coming to Mexico. But what does that mean? I have to surround myself with people from there, people that know more than me. And I think that also goes with when art can be activism. I think you have to know what your point of view is and stand firm in that. That doesn't mean it can't change and it can't evolve, but I do think that you can't be wishy-washy about it, and we all have a moral compass. I think that's part of what makes us human. You should never feel, I think, things I should eradicate from my vocabulary, but you would want to sort of approach, if you're veering into a territory where the work that you're doing can take a role of activism or even be a call to action, because I don't think that all artists are activists. I actually would never consider myself an activist because I really respect the work of all organizers. I do think that my work wants to do a social commentary, a call to action, and things that matter to me, but that's sort of the core of it, no? Like, it has to matter to me. I think you can tell when someone's making something because it's quote-unquote trendy, or it's quote-unquote a hot topic or breaking news, versus something that feels lived in. And I've seen it in, for example, not to plug Walter's movie, If I Go Will They Miss Me, I will plug it because he won't. He just premiered at Sundance with that movie, incredible film. But I know
Gabriela also had a film premiere at Sundance.
Right.
Yes, it's the same movie I'm talking about. But what I'm saying about that is that, contrary from my point of view in my movie, was I'm coming at it as a foreigner, and I know that, and that's pretty much the point of view that you're gonna get when you see the film. Walter's movie is a movie from an LA logo, and you can just feel that in the movie. And I think as filmmakers, when we veer into some sort of territory that feels super specific to a time, a place, and a political climate, then you have to know where you're coming from, I think.
Walter, you should talk about your movie.
Oh man. Thanks for the plug, Gabby. Yeah. There's like so much to like talk about there, and like so much that I agree with, and yeah, it's almost like who's our audience, right? Like who are we making these movies for me? And if my movie is like set in Watts, right? Like I'm not thinking about somebody who lives in like Bismarck, North Dakota when I'm making this movie, right? I'm not thinking about somebody who lives in like, Maryland, right? Like I'm thinking about somebody in Watts. I'm thinking about myself, right? Like, am I gonna see myself? Am I gonna see a world that both feels honest and realistic, but also novel and interesting in ways that I haven't seen the world? Yeah, it's kind of like this age-old question, like who's the art for, and who are these movies for? And I don't know, like I always think about yeah, you're absolutely right. Like you can tell somebody who's like made a movie with like everybody in mind, right? And in this sort of way where it's like there's no specific kind of POV, there's no like one person in mind. They're like trying to make a movie for everyone, and I think we all kind of fail when we do that. So, yeah, thanks for the plug.
I just want to add that I think like who is in the frame, it can be like an act of resistance, and it can be revolutionary. Like what we're putting in that frame, whether it's a close-up or a kitchen table conversation. And I think that those moments, like those choices and the characters that we're choosing to portray are like, we're giving parts of ourself, and not necessarily like, I think, obviously for an audience, but that and that audience connection is really important, but we're being like called to say like, this is what matters to us, and that this life is epic, and it can be seen as epic on the big screen. And I think that was what I really appreciated about Bread and Roses, was just seeing this story told from the perspective of Maya, an undocumented woman who crosses the border and feels mission driven to better her life and better the lives of those around her. And I think those stories are so rare. Trying to make a story like this now, it would be really hard. And so I'm grateful that it exists, but like it's a revolutionary act to see her on the screen, and I think that in that way, art can be very political. In that, like, it's revolutionary to be tender. It's revolutionary to show ourselves as fully human in a time where we are under attack, spiritually, physically, economically, and art and filmmaking and storytelling are really necessary tools for us to survive the times that we're living. And as much as this film is like archival, it feels really contemporary, because we're still going through these same issues, and it's almost more horrific now, but we're creating space to be able to say that I see you, you're not alone. And I think that's really beautiful and really necessary.
I think that's the best part of what you were talking about too. It's like once you lean into specificity so far in, and you lean into the feeling that your experience is giving you. Like when I watched your film, I found myself in it, and I grew up in such a different. I grew up in Brazil, so and here, and so it was. I think there was somebody who said, I believe it's John Waters, who said, if you make a film you like, at least you know for sure one person will like it. And I think that's true. I feel like I really try not to think about the audience often because I feel that it can steal my vision of things, and I try to think of more the people that I have been inspired by through time. And I wondered what artist inspired you guys to start. Like, you introduced me to Ana Mendieta, and it's completely changed my life. So thank you for that. But any artist that kind of led the path to this now?
So many. So many. I think my mom was like really young when she had me. She was in college, and I basically was like a 1-year-old college student. And so what she did have was like a lot of like Latin American, a lot of like Mexican literature. And, you know, thinking about like Borges or like Carlos Fuentes or Cisneros, and right, like a lot of sort of like Latin American kind of like magical realism is like what I grew up with. And so for me, that's kind of how it starts. And also, like, I don't know, like, I feel like I read more than I watch, if that makes sense. So like, you know, I'm really prone to like rereading Sula or like, you know, The Bluest Eye. You know, that's kind of what I do. I don't know. So I'm really inspired by literature in that way.
Yeah, I was also really inspired by magical realism and Latin American literature. I think is just the way that in our culturally we're taught to dream, and how dreams are an extension of our reality and not just, you know, something you do at night, or, you know. I think that is, you know, being able to make visible the invisible, or creating worlds, is really inspiring to me as an artist. And again, I'm inspired by so many, including these two artists on stage. It's really amazing to see my contemporaries creating such honest and beautiful works of art in this day when it's so hard to create art. And so, yeah, I think there's this great quote from Michelangelo, and it says, "The artist will die, his work survives. In order to escape death, that's why I attempt to bind my soul to my work." And I think that is such a poignant way of viewing the mission of an artist, right? It's just like, I'm trying to give you my soul. I'm trying to share what's inside of me, because I know that I'm looking for connection, and I know that so are you. And hopefully by bearing my soul, we can connect and you know, create a community, create union, and make this world a better place.
Wow. No, I'm still thinking about that quote. It's so interesting. One of my biggest inspirations is Federico Garcia Lorca and the Duende theory. And I come from the world of theater. What I love about Lorca is one of his first, well, one of the works I really resonate with is The House of Bernarda Alba. And it's a play about these women where the patriarch of the house dies, and this woman has all these daughters, and she forces them to sort of grieve this man for 7 years, and to like wear veils over their head, not get out of the house, and almost imparts a patriarchy into this matriarchal system. And it has that thing similar to Lord of the Flies of like, if we had a do-over, what would we do? And most of the time, like, we as humans fuck everything up, because we like, it's this. So we have this idea of like, oh, this is a matriarchy now. Maybe these women will live in peace and create beautiful worlds and support each other. And then it turns out that the patriarchy becomes intensified in this play, because this woman only knows repression, and once the structure that repressed her goes, then she only knows how to impart it again. And I say that because this man got killed in the dictatorship in Spain for the things he wrote, the life he lived. He was a gay man, and it's very interesting to me when I have so many tabs open in this conversation, but what I found incredible about his work was the way this queer man wrote women. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about point of view, where it's like, there's something so powerful about point of view when we sort of enter a new project or something we want to say. And it is true that this man was not a woman, but he had a sensibility that spoke to the female thought process, life, and to me there is ways in which, you know, I've been in LA for 13 years and I think I could write a movie about what LA means to me. But I think it's coming from a place of abundance and almost this desire to connect the dots rather than destroy them, that I think makes it almost a political act that this like queer man was able to sort of express his queerness through women, because that feminine side of him was sort of killed over and over. And so like me as an immigrant here, just to like make a connection there, I'm out in the streets because we don't want ICE in our city, but I'm also very much knowing the privilege I have that I am now a citizen of this country. And, you know, can I tell a story about, if I choose to, about immigrants here? And what does that look like? And to me, being able to see the other as an opportunity to really connect can make it so that we can create bridges between our point of views. But that takes work and research and this sort of humility, I think. I think the people that write about things that they haven't necessarily lived through, but they feel strongly about, and they do a good job at it, I think they have this sense of humility. And I don't know Ken Loach, you know? He made this movie, and there's a lot of, at its most successful, I think we are with Maya, and she is making choices. Like that opening sequence where she's escaping the room with the keys, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and I think that's a choice. This woman's funny, this woman's smart, this woman has something that, you know, and that was like, okay, you gave her choices. It's not just like this victimhood and things are happening to her. And I think the people that are able to connect with causes outside themselves are able to see the characters that they write as real people, as active, as people that make choices beyond their situation. And I think that's really difficult to do, and I'm still learning how to do that, you know. I've stayed in my comfort zone in that way, you know. I don't know if you guys have veered off, but I've stayed in the Dominican, diaspora, Latina-driven stories. Like, haven't veered off yet. And it's political, right? Because time and time again, when I'm on set, people are like, you're the only Dominican director I've ever worked with. And I'm like, how? Have you been to New York? But yeah, I'm just, you know, I wonder if any of us could do a movie like this. I mean, on paper, you would be the most qualified, right, to do this movie because you're from here. But like, you know what I mean? I question. I'm curious.
I have so much to say right now. I'm usually pretty quiet and pretty chill, but like I know Gabby, we're like best of friends and stuff, and so yeah, I have a question for you now, actually. Like so like what's the sort of the parameters, right, like around ownership of story and also like perspective of story and like who's allowed to tell a certain story, right? Like I mean Lorca and like Almodovar too, right? And all these sort of movies, you know, these strong women characters, something really interesting, beautiful, what I think is honest, I don't know, might be wrong, right? And then you have like a Steve McQueen who like, you know, does Hunger, you know, and like black man from England, there's no black people in Hunger. Spielberg does The Color Purple, right? White Jewish dude from Phoenix. The Color Purple is an amazing movie, right? So this isn't a comment, it's a question because I always think about that too, right? When I was at the Sundance Director Labs a few years ago, I think it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, one of the advisors there who I'm not gonna call out because like she's like a mentor of mine and like a dear friend, but like we got into a heated debate about this question. You know, she's a really incredible filmmaker, black woman who paved the way for a lot of us, right? Whose movies we all kind of love. And her and I were having lunch, and we got into a fiery debate about the sort of possibilities about making movies. Like, my dad's black, my mom's Mexican, and so for me, I'm just like, you know what? Like, I was being very vulnerable and honest. Where I was like, I would love for the opportunity to one day hopefully make a movie with like no black or brown people in it, in a very sort of honest way, in a way that like I'm thinking about story, right? And she pushed back, and it got very heated, and I was like, man, like, why is she getting so heated at me, right? Like, I feel like she would love this generational thing, right? But also she was like, nah, like as a black woman, like this is, I feel so much pride. And I was like, I feel pride too. But like the freedoms, right, that I think is as storytellers, I think, right, is what I was trying to tell her. And I was like, man, like I would love to make a movie with like set in Eastern Europe with like all Eastern Europeans in a small, cold winter town. Like that feels like incredible, like incredible freedom to do that. So that's a long ass way. I'm talking way too much. But you know what I'm saying, Gabby, right? Like.
But I'm there with you. I
Yeah.
ask this question all the time. Like, who's allowed to tell the story? The best answer I have found for myself is, if it feels weird, if it suddenly feels weird, walk away. No, but actually, my real answer is, I think if you have to care, and if you're not part of a certain community, and you have to really question why you're doing it. You have to question you have to see what's in the canon about this thing, and what you have to always ask yourself why. But I feel like that's with every project, because I talk about with people all the time, and I don't know if you had this, when you're suddenly in a conversation, everyone's like, yeah, I'm making this movie so I can go to Cannes. And I'm like, that's why you're making that movie? I don't. What do you think, Alexis?
Yeah, I think as long as you are approaching the work with honesty, and that you find, like Ken found his way in to this film with Adrian Brody's character, right, Jose. But I think he created a lot of space for the characters on screen to show up authentically using their own language. And one thing that really bothers me right now is like, this movie is set in Brazil and they're speaking English. Like we're not doing that anymore. That's like a thing of the past that we're watching. I love Terrence Malick, is one of my favorite filmmakers, and he did the Pocahontas movie. I can't remember what it's called right now. But he did the story of Pocahontas in a way that A New World, yes, A New World. And he had like authentic indigenous actors, and even though it was like a story of like colonization, right, it was still one of the most honest films that I've seen. And I think that he, as a filmmaker, is really truly so honest. And I think that is, you need to find your way in. I do think that like, for us on this stage, it would be really cool to just make a movie that isn't about the culture, but we are culture bearers at this time, and it's essential that we're putting our culture on the screen. And so one day, hopefully, we'll be directing other projects that reach beyond the scope of what it means to be seen and for our people to be seen. But for me, that's like a priority in my work, and aspirationally, it's like the only stories I want to be telling right now.
You know what was cool about this movie? In the building, like the workers, there is like a woman from Eastern Europe. There's definitely the Puerto Rican guy. There's like the two Mexican sisters,
and
then there's the
cast. I thought.
Well, because I had an issue with the diversity conversation. Is that just because you have diversity in race doesn't mean you have diversity in other areas like socioeconomics, education level, opportunity, language. Like there's so many things that can be connecting threads between people. And I think when you have movies like this, or you have, creators of different communities writing about communities that are not their own, you can have an opportunity to be like, we're more alike than you think. Because I think that's the problem that's happening with the immigration crisis in this country. They're looking at us like you and I have nothing in common, and we're all like, we pay our taxes, bro. Like, we have a lot more in common. In fact, we're probably all complaining about the same issues with minimum wage. We're probably all complaining about the housing crisis. We're probably all complaining that we're all getting cancer because the foods are horrible. And I think that's the main issue when people are so xenophobic, is that they think they have nothing in common with someone from another culture.
Yeah, that's so well said. I think one of the screenings we did here was Mi Vida Loca, and we had Allison Anders come in. And, you know, Allison Anders is one of the best examples, I think, of somebody who made a film about a culture she's not a part of. But her respect for it, she went into Echo Park, she got to know the women that were there. Her way in was that these girls, I guess, were like fighting over this guy. And then she saw the guy and she was like, for real, you guys? Like, this is who we're fighting over? And then she came from a female perspective in the 90s when people were making very machista Latin stories. Nobody else was turning the camera around. And so she was like, hey, I'm gonna dive fully in. Every single aspect of this film will include people from the community, and I will listen to them as they tell me things. And you know, I think it's a question that's important to ask yourself. You know, like you said, if it feels icky, it's probably not right. But I think that it really kind of, you know, the people that I'm like, oh, we claim that as ours, are people who really included people that were from, and tried to learn and tried to understand, and then came at it from like a human perspective rather than a cultural perspective. And I think both things there's great examples and there's great exceptions, and we have to start wrapping up. But I wanted to go around and just say, what would your advice be for a filmmaker who's starting off right now during this very heavy political climate?
You gotta start, bro.
Yeah.
I know, every time. Oh man, what a weird ass time, right? Like, what a weird. I can cuss. Can I cuss? Okay. I don't know, man. I think it's just like, it's like, none of this is like. I mean, it is novel in some regards, but I think it's also part of this like larger legacy, right? Like what we're experiencing, like it's legacy. You know, this sort of violence is, right? So I'm not sure. I think it's like my response is always to stay closer to the ones that I love, you know, and spend more time around them and try to be as close to them as possible, and try to find ways to sort of like to kind of call it back, you know, with like how I was raised with like all my family telling ghost stories, right? I think for me, it's like, that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been going to my mom's house and my tia's house so much more these days, and asking them questions and asking them to tell me these ghost stories again and again. And, you know, I smile and laugh, but I think that's like kind of what we do to like stay alive, essentially, you know, because like story for me isn't an accessory. Like, story is essential for survival. And, you know, I really nerd out on like early sapiens, early humans, sort of like survival stories in terms of like, you know, Neanderthals and sapiens, and I can talk about that for hours. But like, story is essential in so many different ways. So for me, like, if someone were to ask me, nobody's asked me, but if someone were to ask me, I'd be like, yeah, man, just like, you know, ask the people around you about their lives and like try to find ways to preserve that. Because what we're doing essentially for me is just working with time, right? All the things that we make now are like conversations for the future, for people to watch in the future and think back like, man, that's what they loved in 2026. That's what they were afraid of in 2026. That's how they were thinking about the world. So I think that's it.
I love that. I'm going to yes and that answer, because I do think, like, truly recording your elders, capturing them, speaking, is one of, I think, like, my work itself stands, I think, on the, between ancestral memory and it relates to my survival in today because of the wisdom of my elders, and so much of that has found its way into my work. And so it's like there's this really generic saying like, write what you know, and they tell you that probably in some college classes, and I was always like, no, what I know is not that interesting. But as it turns out, it took me time to live and figure this out. I was like, actually, yeah, my life is so much more interesting, or my family is so much more interesting, my people, my culture, all of that is so much more interesting than any other kind of projection that I could have tried to imagine. And so, yeah, I agree. Capture your elders. It's like storytelling is older than empire. It was here long before, and it is going to be here long after. And so, truly, I think it's like, this is the other thing that I think people don't realize is like how necessary their voice is. They think, oh man, this shit's so hard. It's really hard to make a movie. It's really hard to get any project off the ground, to do a play or any of that stuff. But if you feel a calling in your heart, you gotta listen, you gotta stand up, you gotta meet that mission, because you were given that story, you were given that dream, you were given that aspiration for a reason, and no one else is gonna fulfill that mission in this life except for you. So don't give up and don't give in.
Two things come to mind. One, on that same breath, I think children are just as important as our elders. Some of the smartest people I've ever met are under 5. And they teach us so much about being curious and being loose and just asking questions. A lot of the times I found myself, if I wanted to make a movie or if I was concerned about something political or something, because I care about a lot of things. And I constantly ask myself, why do I care so much about this, or why? And sometimes like we get so wrapped up in how we feel about a certain thing that we forget how to ask the people directly affected, like, what do you need? And sometimes it's as simple as asking people what they need or what they want, and like letting those questions surprise us. Sometimes like, I don't think all the answers about how to tell a story are inside our head. I actually think the more we're inside, the more we miss. And I agree, like just being outside in the real world and connecting with others and building community is so important. And now in like a more technical thing, I'm very inspired by alternative ways of distributing our work and sharing our work with the community. I think we've all, as an industry, have a bit veered off into why we're making what we're making and who is it for. Kind of going back to the question of the audience, I feel like if we want our things to be seen, that we should put them up in parks, we should put them up at friends' houses, we should show our work, like not wait for approval of institutions. I think community is so much stronger than anything else. And all these great people we admired, they weren't thinking about the laurel that they were gonna put in the still that they were gonna post on Instagram. I think they were thinking about, like, if I don't make this thing and show it to someone, I'm gonna combust. And I think we should just get more creative of how we show work and how we show up for the work and how we talk about the work. And I don't have a full answer to that, but I think people younger than me probably do. And I'm just excited about the community screenings and the movie nights and the movie club. Can we bring back movie club?
It's interesting because when we were looking at all film history, Latin film history, most filmmakers like from Brazil and like they all kind of popped off from movie clubs, from people coming together. And so I agree. And I think the main issue migrants face in the United States is erasure. So it's important that we gather around these stories because it's a very, it's a community that's taught to hide. And so thank you for being here. Thank you, Los Angeles Public Library, for having us.
Thank
And we'll
you.
see you at the next one.
One more hand for our guest planning. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming today. These programs could not happen without you, our most important people, our patrons. I did want to say that the library will be closing at 5, so please get your validation and try and exit before 5. Thank you so much.